Coming up on our Finding Better podcast, Kim Sorrelle is back. And folks, this is an episode you do not want to miss. We'll tell you about that when we meet you out there sometime. But anyway, we're going to talk about love. We're going to talk about incredible stuff. We're going to talk about expectations. A quote from Kim: "Expectations get us into trouble," right? And we're going to talk about what it takes to have an amazing, amazing relationship, and in bringing a little more love in your life and letting some of the fear go. And here's the kicker: you get to decide. So with that, here we go. Hello, 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 and welcome back to our Finding Better podcast. My name is John Suzuki, and I am your host. And this is where we share real life experiences of folks who have been there and done that in terms of life experiences and wisdom that perhaps you can learn from and apply to your own lives as you continue your journey in building a better life. Because sometimes a really great way to or a really great path to success is to kind of copy it, right? And so please subscribe, please share this. We have Kim back. Kim Sorrelle is one of my favorite people in the whole wide world. She is amazing. And we're going to talk about something which, frankly, to me, is the most important topic in the whole wide world. And so before I go into the introduction, Kim, welcome back to our Finding Better podcast. Thank you for joining me again.
Thank you, John. Funny thing, you're one of my favorite people in the whole wide world. So works out pretty good, I guess.
Okay, let's tell everybody why we like each other so much. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Yeah. So Kim is amazing, and you're going to hear her story in just a minute. And we're going to talk. I've mentioned all the time that it's all about people. It's all about relationships. It's all about heart, and it's all about love. And one of the reasons, probably the biggest reason why I started this podcast to begin with, is just kind of to get really, really great people in front of you who have really wonderful stories and experiences that they can share. Because, like I say, our podcast is not about theories or academics or opinions. Okay, not opinions. It's about real life experiences and wisdom that we've experienced that we want to share with you. And we're going to talk about heart. We're going to talk about love today. As you can see in the background, Kim has a book called Love Is. And she's the author of that book. And she's going to tell you a little bit about it, sprinkled throughout our conversation. But I want to kick this off, Kim, with a quote that I heard years and years and years ago that has stuck with me all these years, probably, I don't know, 15, 20 years. And it comes from Albus Dumbledore, of all people, of Harry Potter fame. And during the movie, he said, and it was in the last book, and he says, "Harry, don't pity the dead. Pity the living, especially those who live without love." And I thought, think about that, folks, for a minute, right? Um, how many people out there are living without love in their lives? And what would your life be if you're not? What could your life be like if you're not and you could? You know? And so, Kim, let's talk about that. I want to, you wrote this book. You've lived an amazing life, and you've traveled the world. Um, what does, for our audience out there, what does love mean to you? And how did you get to where we are today?
Love, I believe, means something different to me than it means to a lot of people because
Hmm.
I dedicated a year to figuring out the true meaning of love. Like, John, you put 12 people in a room, you get 12 different answers if you say, "What is love?" And so
That's
it's
true. Yep.
sort of this elusive thing in a way. And people define it as time goes on, define it based on what they've been told or taught. And quite often, the definition for love that we use hurts us because if we're using the wrong definition, with that then goes a certain expectation. like any definition of any word, then you define the word and you go, oh, well, this is what I can expect from that word. Well, the
Right.
same is true of love. And it's the expectations that quite often get us into some pretty hot water, especially when it comes to love and not really understanding what love is.
Interesting. So, and this is what you spent a year learning.
Yes.
And you say that, and of course, there's a tons of things. I mean, these experiences and conversations and all these things kind of flash across my mind, because I can see that. I can see what you're talking about, because whatever your definition of love is what you're setting yourself up for, and a lot of times you're setting yourself up for failure more than you are success. So how do people avoid that? How do people set themselves up so that they can bring more love into their lives with the right definition?
Well, I think first, the very first thing is to recognize that most of us live with the wrong definition of love and being
Okay.
open to that there could be a new definition, right? A different definition than what we've been taught. Because that's can be the hardest part is thinking, man, I've lived all these years thinking that this is what love is. Am I really open to a new definition of love? Do I really want to hear this, or do I want to just kind of keep living status quo? And my challenge would be you do want to hear it, because status quo can be great, status quo can be crappy, but no matter what, if things can be better, then why not let things be better, right? So,
Absolutely.
yeah. So, step number one, yes, there is a different definition. And I'll tell you, this is what I discovered is that we often think of love as a feeling or an emotion, right? That's one of the things we're told. It's a feeling, it's an emotion.
Right.
We're told it's a two-way street. We're told you have to give love to get love. We're told these different things about love, when the reality is love is not a feeling or an emotion. John, I don't know if this has happened to you, but watch a scary movie and then go to bed that night and I hear every creak, every bang, every bump, and I'm scared to death, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, but the next night it's better because fear is an emotion, it's a feeling, and those things come and go. Fear comes and goes. You don't live in fear. Love does not come and go. Love is always. And so it is so much more than a feeling. Love is actually who you are. You are love. How you
Right.
live love and how you decide to be love to other people and to yourself is completely up to you. But but it's not something you go to the office and hang up in the coat closet or go home and throw in a drawer somewhere. Love is always with you. Because you are love. In John, it says that God is love, not that God loves, but God is love. And we're created in God's image, which means we also are love. And so what does that look like then is the question. The
S-
next question.
So, okay, that's pretty heavy. I loved what you said about fear comes and goes. Love is always there. It never goes away. And yet, you know, you also hear these things. You hear people say love is weakness, right? If when you care about people, you it's weakness. You it's remarkable how much you look at Hollywood and it's a lot of Hollywood is about kind of the antithesis of love. Eventually, you have love stories, right? But you hear the scary movies that you were talking about, or fights and all. And people like drama. People like you look at the sound bites in the news, and very few of that stuff is about love. It's about other stuff. I'll just say it. A lot of it's just bullshit, right? And for me, I wish that we lived in a world where not only fear sells and gossip sells, but love sells as much as everything else. It does a little bit, but not nearly as much as a lot of other things. And so I look at the world around us, and it seems like we're conditioned. There's a certain amount of conditioning around telling us, not only as we grow up and what people tell us what love is, right? But what we experience in the world. And so I'm curious, I'm really curious about your story on how you decided to go on this search for the meaning of love.
Yeah, well, I- I'll tell you my story. You know my story. But so when I was in high school, John, I had my life laid out before me. I knew exactly what I wanted to do. I was going to be the first woman president. And so I knew
Okay.
where I was going to go to school. I was going to page. I was going to do this. I was going to do that. I knew the next steps. And
You were going
I
to be the first woman president of the United States.
of the United States. Yes.
Very
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
That was my goal. And
Still
so,
maybe.
yeah, yeah. I'm younger than the current one. So there's time. There's time
Yeah.
for me. But so I had my life laid out and I didn't see where husband, kids would fit into that plan because I had a plan. And then this tall, dark, handsome man walked into the room, and I was immediately smitten. And I was 17 years old, May of my senior year in high school, and thinking I was never going to get married. And all of a sudden, here comes this man. And everybody that I dated, they had to have two things. One, they had to be over 6 foot tall because my very short mom married a very short man. And so I wanted my kids to have a fighting chance at some height. And then the second thing was they had to be good looking. So they'd look good in wedding pictures if I ever did have wedding pictures. And so I was obviously very deep thinker when it came to
Yeah,
relationships,
that's
just
amazing how
thought
deep
about it
that
all the
was.
time. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so anyway, this man, this gorgeous hunk of burning love walked into my life. And 10 days later, I asked him to marry me and he said yes.
Whoa,
And
whoa, 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 whoa.
yeah,
Man walks into the room you happen to be in.
uh-huh. At a
You
bowling
see
alley,
him
actually. Mm-hmm.
at a bowling alley.
Mm-hmm.
I guess it's a little bit better than a pickup joint, but in a bowling alley, right? And 10 days later,
10 days later.
you
Yeah,
asked him
I did.
and he said yes.
Yes. And he said, yes.
Wow.
I
Wow.
know. I know. Like, it's not necessarily anything I'd recommend to people, but at the same time,
Yeah, this is
for
an
me,
experience, life experience. You might want to
right.
think about.
Yeah. Yeah. You might want to give it a little more, maybe go through the
Yeah.
seasons, give it a little more time,
At least
a little
one
more
season.
thought. Right. 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 Hear a little bit deeper about how he's going to look in the pictures. But, but yeah, I just knew that I did not want this man to be anywhere but by my side. And
Wow.
yeah, and so we got married a little less than a year later. We got married the next April. So, and then I was a horrible wife. I was terrible. I thought I was mature enough at 18 to get married, and man, was I foolish about that. I mean, it was almost like testing a new babysitter. Like, like how far can I push him and he still love me? Whatever.
Wow.
But after we got through the first couple years of me realizing that I need to grow up a bit if I'm gonna, do this man justice because he's such a great guy. Then our marriage was great. And we had so much fun together, laughed together, enjoyed so much traveling and had kids and enjoyed doing everything with our kids and just had this great life. And it was wonderful. And we had dreams, big dreams, right? Like you
And
do.
that it's amazing, the 10-day thing is amazing of itself. But you had enough self-reflection to know that you had a problem with your marriage and the problem was you,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
And did that happen overnight or did you just wake up one morning dreaming and or having a nightmare and going, aha, the problem is how did you get there?
Well, there were a couple things that happened. One was there was an evening real early on in our marriage, within the first few months of our marriage. And my husband was 4 years older, so he was an older man, so much more
Ooh,
mature, yeah, of course.
cradle
But
robber.
yeah, exactly. But I had this evening where I thought, oh gosh, I'm going to make him his favorite meal, and I'm going to put out the candles that we got as a wedding gift. and put the tablecloth that we got. And then I'm going to clean the apartment and have some great music playing. And so I did all that. I made lasagna, homemade lasagna. He loved it. I made German chocolate cake from scratch, his very favorite. So like with
Wow.
flour and butter and sugar, nothing out of a box. And I couldn't wait for him to get home, clean the place, put on his favorite album back in the day. And put on a little something, something, and couldn't wait for him to walk through the door.
You
And
wait, you put
so,
on a little something, something. You
you
want to
know,
elaborate on? No, I'm just kidding.
and so he walked through the door, and it was like any other day. He comes in, puts his stuff down. Hey, how was your day? He said nothing. He didn't say, wow, the place looks great. Oh, baby, you look great. Nothing. He said nothing. And I thought, well, when he sees what I did for dinner, then he's gonna see that this is a special night and whatever. So we sit down and he's eating and he's just talking about his day and asking me about mine. And it's like any other night we'd ever spent together. It was not candlelight dinner. It's like, buddy, are you blind? Are you not seeing all this that I did for you? And
Yeah.
so I'm fuming inside because I did all this for him and he is responding not to anything I did. So
Yeah.
by the time I was serving dessert, I practically threw it at him. And he said, are you mad? And I'm like, am I mad? Yes, I'm mad. Are you kidding me? I did all this for you. I cleaned, I worked, the hot stove, the whole deal. I'm looking fine. You've said nothing. Yes, I'm mad. And he said, well, wait a minute. He said, first of all, I don't read minds. Secondly, I've done nothing wrong. It's your expectations that have gotten you in trouble. I didn't know you expected me to say certain things. That's what got you in trouble is you and your expectations, not something that I did. And I'm like, my expectations. Who is this guy? I sit up and I slam my chair against the table. I go to the bedroom, I slam the door, and I'm going, my expectations. He's blaming me. I did all this for him, and he's blaming me, my expectations.
Typical
And then
guy thing, by the way.
yeah, typical guy thing. And then I went, my expectations. He was exactly right. He
Yeah.
was not a mind reader.
But you
And
weren't wrong either,
well,
right?
yeah,
Right?
yes,
I mean,
yes,
it
and
was okay
no.
to
I
have
mean,
those expectations. Yeah. I mean,
right,
yeah.
right. I mean, he was left-handed. He said left-handed people don't know how to give a compliment. I think it was an excuse on his part, but yes, yeah. The human thing you would think would be to say, but but as time went on and I got to know my husband more and more and more, he thought I looked beautiful in sweatpants with greasy
Aw.
hair. What like he never felt like he had to say it because he always felt the same way about me. Like he always got the butterflies when I walked into a room, like I got when he walked into a room. And so he didn't ever say, but I learned that day two things. One, I didn't want my husband having to teach me anything else. Like that should have come from my father or something, but not my husband. But
Yeah.
but but I also learned that expectations do get you into trouble. That they absolutely do. And it's okay to say, honey, how do I look? Like so often we want our husband, we want our partner to say, oh man, do you look good? Or hey, this food is great. We want them to say that unprompted. Like
Yeah.
somehow it's a better compliment if we don't prompt it. And I'm here to tell you, prompt it. If you need to hear it, ask for it. It's really okay. If you need romance and he's not romantic, she's not romantic, but you need romance, you create the romance. It's not a gender thing. Anybody can create the romance. And my husband didn't need the romance. He was happy just cuddling on the couch watching, Cash Cab or something. And so he didn't
With
need
you with
the
your greasy hair and sweats.
right, exactly. It didn't matter to him. But I needed that. I needed the romance
Yeah.
and I needed the reassurance that he likes what I'm making or, whatever it is. And so I learned it's okay to ask. Like it's okay to prompt it. It's not better not prompted and stewing, getting angry because he doesn't say something you want him to say when he has no idea that you want him to say it. So that was a huge lesson in my life was
That
learning about
that's
expectations.
wonderful. And you know the book Men Are from Mars,
Yes.
right? I,
Yes.
I mean there's a lot of that. There's a lot of that, but of course, um, it goes both ways, right? And when my wife and I first met, we were with all of her friends, and one of her friends in this conversation with probably a dozen people said, "You know, what's the most important thing in a happy marriage?" Right? And everybody went around, right? And one person said love, another person said trust, another person said respect, another person, and it went all the way around. We were talking about the whole thing. Um, and there were two people in the room that hadn't said anything. And one was me, the other one was the woman who was going to be my wife. And eventually they somebody said, "Hey, John and Jerry's her name." They said, "Hey, we haven't heard from you. What do you think the most important thing in a healthy relationship and marriage is?" And Kim, at the exact same moment, the two of us both said communication.
Wow.
I
Wow.
mean, it was as if somebody said one, two, three, go, right? I mean, and I turned to her and she looked at me kind of funny. But I looked at her like, "You're going to be my wife." And maybe that's why she looked at
Where's
me
the
funny.
ring? Somebody give me a ring. Quick,
Yeah,
I need to propose.
exactly. And, we've all over almost 40 years, we're about to celebrate our 40-year anniversary. It has held totally, totally true. And what you say about prompting it, right? Because I've been there, I've had those experiences where everything will be going great, and next thing I know, the bedroom door is closed and she's behind it. And, and, and it's communication. And it's funny because I am a person. I love hugs. I love being told I love you. She comes from a family who barely recognizes each other in the room, and so we have different ways of showing that we love each other over the last 40 years. But figuring out how to communicate, because everybody has got different ways of being reached, right?
Mhm.
Some people are physical, some people are verbal, some people are just body language, whatever. And so prompt it. I love that. I love
Yeah.
that. Just
Yeah.
do it. Don't make
Yeah.
the
Just do
person
it.
read your mind. Just do it.
Right.
Okay, so in the example of when you got all decked out, you made the candle lights and all that stuff. Looking back, what would you have done when he walked through the room? Walked into the room.
Uh, I would have said, "Hey, how's the place look?" And
Fine.
but whatever. Yeah, just whatever. Point things out that
Okay.
he obviously
Do
was
you
not
see what
seeing.
I'm wearing?
Yeah, right, right. Yeah. Do I look
You
good?
realize
Tell
that
me I
this
look
isn't
good.
normal, right? Yeah.
Right, right, right. Yeah, this isn't 5 o'clock wear, usual.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not wearing sweats. So
Yeah, yeah. But I would have said, "Hey, how's dinner?" Or actually, after doing this whole love thing, I wouldn't have done those. I wouldn't have said those things.
yeah.
Because his words back to me wouldn't have mattered. The action of me doing those things, it's selfish if I'm doing them for a compliment,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Might be nice, might be fun, might be a nice thing, a kind thing to do, but you take the love away as soon as you expect anything in return,
Yeah, yeah,
right?
and as you were just saying that, I realized that had you done anything differently, the impact of that lesson wouldn't have happened,
Hmm.
right, with you,
Right.
and that's yeah, and that's another thing, right? I tell people all the time that the greatest lesson in life is failure, and we often remember our successes, but we especially remember the times when we failed, and uh, and so yeah, that's wonderful. That's
Yeah.
wonderful.
Yeah.
And
It's
so so I interrupted you. This whole last 7 minutes was about an interruption, where you were about to talk about moving forward with your life with this man.
Yeah, well, so right. And I don't like to put, some disclosures on it. Well, oh, we had our fights or we had our, of course, life happens, whatever.
Sure.
But that was a big moment in my marriage, learning about expectations, and that was huge. And then the next big moment came not that long, within a couple years after that, and it was I had kids. We started having kids a couple years into marriage, and that's busy. Anyone who has kids understands it's busy and it's endless. There is
Yeah.
endless laundry. You think you get down to the bottom, and somehow it just multiplies. Like there's always things to do, and the
There are
babies
no business
always need.
hours when it comes to kids.
No, no, it's 24/7. You're exhausted. Talk about sweats and greasy hair. My gosh, if you get a chance to take a shower, praise the Lord. Like that's a
Right,
big moment. I got to
right.
take a shower today. And so
That's
it's
true.
busy and it's crazy. And then on top, then I was staying home with the babies, and they came like I had one, and 16 months later I had another, and then less than 2 years I had another. My oldest was 4.5 when my fourth one was born, but at this point in time we only had a couple. And I was busy, and I was staying home with the kids, and I making dinner and cleaning house and taking care of the kids and doing all this stuff. And it's just everything. Well, my husband would come home from work, and he'd put his feet up on the sofa, whatever, turn on the TV, watch something while I'm putting dinner on the table. And then he'd wander over and he'd eat. And then he'd wander back over to the couch, change the channels while I'm doing the dishes. And I started looking at him like, do I need him? Do I need him for more than a paycheck? Like, what's he contributing here? I could do this alone. I could do all of this. I'm already doing it alone. That's how I was feeling, is I'm doing this alone. So, if I can find the paycheck another way, then I have that much less laundry. So, do I want this? And then I thought, you know what? I want a great marriage. I want a great marriage. And I knew that if I wanted a great marriage, it was up to me to create it. It doesn't take two, it takes one. One person making a change changes everything for both of you. So if you're waiting for your
Ooh.
partner to change something, stop waiting and you start doing, and things will change. So I decided that I was going to do everything I could to make this man happy. Everything I could. So when I'd go to the grocery store, I'd bring back a favorite treat. I'd write him a little note before work. I, make something special for his lunch. I just did everything I could to make him happy. And it changed me. It changed everything dramatically. And I didn't put a time limit on it. I didn't say, you know what? I'm going to do this for a month. And if he doesn't change, he doesn't come around and start helping me out and see what I'm
Yeah.
doing, then he's out of here. I didn't do that. I just said, I want a happy marriage. I want the best marriage possible. And I'm going to do everything I can to make this man happy, period. No time frame. Well, of course it changed everything. Of course he responded. Of course it didn't happen overnight. But what did happen pretty much overnight was my attitude. So instead of begrudging him for getting to leave the kids for a few hours a day while I'm home with the kids going crazy those same hours, or begrudging him for sitting on the couch when I'm getting dinner on the table or anything like that, I just I enjoyed I enjoyed serving him. I enjoyed doing anything I could for him. And I shifted from he's just a paycheck to holy cow, he is 6'3" and he is gorgeous. And I get butterflies when he walks into the room. And
Oh.
and it shifted me. It shifted my heart. It shifted my mind. And yeah, it did shift him. Because then he's like, honey, what can I do? I mean, he was recognizing things more, and then he wanted to do things for me, even though I wasn't doing things for him, so that he would do things for me. But it's a natural human response, right?
Yeah.
When you feel that loved, you can't help but love back. And so that was the very beginning, the real beginning of a great marriage from that time on.
That is amazing. That is amazing. I have never heard that before, Kim. It doesn't take two, it takes one. It
Mhm.
takes one. If you want change, make it happen and everything will follow. What was it that prompted you to just to go from that mental space of God, this guy's being a jerk. I work my ass off the whole day, and he comes in, sits his ass down on the sofa, watches TV. He's expecting dinner on the table. Then he comes in and has dinner on the table. Then he leaves his freaking dishes on the table and sits his ass back down and watches golf. I mean, how, how, how do you take that leap from that place where you are to where you ended up one night?
Yeah. Well, one thing is my parents had a horrible marriage. My parents fought every day, every day. My dad slept on the couch more than he did in his bedroom. In fact, I tried to get my husband to sleep on the couch. Like we, newly married and he had a fight. He's supposed to sleep on the couch. He's like, why would I sleep on the couch? I have a bedroom. And I'm like, oh, I guess so. I don't
Isn't
know.
that
I
what
thought
all
that's what
husbands
you
do?
do. Yeah. Yeah. So my parents were great parents, but they were not, my mom was not a good
Mhm.
wife. My
Mm.
mom did not know how to be a wife. And I knew I never wanted to be a wife like my mom. There was no
Oh,
way I wanted to be a wife like my mom. And I loved this man. I mean, even though he was doing things that were irritating the crap out of me, I still loved him. And so I thought, well, I can live in this misery I've created in my own mind. He's
yes.
right. Or it's up to me to change it. Those but I have choices. I can
Yeah.
change it or not. And I decided I love being happy. I love being happy. Period. Like I want to be happy. And so if I wanted to be happy, I needed to create my happy.
You hear it all the time in different ways, in different places, the whole idea that we live to serve. Our purpose being here is to serve others. And you found that. You found that in spades and you found your happiness in it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
it was, I mean, we're for whatever reason, a lot of us are conditioned to think that if something's not right, it's the other person's fault. And and a lot of times it's not, right? There may be no fault at all. It just may be the way we're thinking and the way we're
Mhm.
thinking about stuff and the biases that we have in our heads. And so yeah, you broke through all that.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to say you lived happily ever after. Well, I just said it, but life went on and it got better, right?
Oh my gosh, so much better. I mean, it
And he
changed
did
everything.
nothing. He did nothing. It was all
He did
about you.
nothing. Yeah,
Yeah,
it was, and I
good for
changed,
you.
but then he came along for the ride. But
And got
and
better
I
at it.
think right, and I think it can be so easy too because of the way we're raised, or because of the way we're conditioned, or because of what's in movies and what's in media, whatever. To think, well, wait a minute, why am I the one doing all the giving? Well,
Right.
where are they? Why am I? But I'm going to tell you this that is so true. That is just the magic of the universe that we live in is that you cannot outgive. You cannot outdo, you cannot outgive. So
You
if you,
cannot outgive.
it's
Okay.
impossible. It's impossible. I remember the first time before going to my first mission trip was to the Dominican Republic after a bad hurricane went right over the eye went right over Santo Domingo and people needed help, whatever. And so I went there and I'm thinking, I'm going there to serve. I'm going there to help. What I got out of that trip, what I came home with was so much greater than I could ever give. And
Okay.
but the thing holds true that special law of the universe is true no matter what. If you are being kind out of love, if you are doing things for people because you are doing it out of love, so you love to do it, you want to help people, you want to serve, you want to make your husband dinner, you want to help with the laundry, whatever it happens to be. If you're doing it out of love, then you don't have expectations of anything coming back in return.
No conditions.
No conditions. no expectations, but it comes back anyway. Even though that's not why you're doing it, that's not what you're looking for, it comes back anyway because that's just how love is so incredible. Love the right way is so incredible. And the way the universe works, you can't out love, you can't out give, you just can't. It's just impossible.
My experience says that you're absolutely right. I remember interviewing a man who happened to be my karate sensei, eighth degree black belt. And he was I always called him the real Mr. Miyagi because he was a short Japanese Filipino guy. And, he's just, you know, one of the most humble people I'd ever met, one of the strongest men I've ever met in my life. And that's when I learned that ego is born of weakness, humility is born of strength, and I've lived it and I've seen it every day of my life. And so while I was talking with him, I'd known him, I'd been a student of his for 25 years, and I said to him, I asked him a question. I said, Sensei, I said, you know what? I mean, you've had this dojo now for 50 years. You've had thousands and thousands and thousands of kids coming through these doors, and you remember every single person's name. You remember the names not only of the students, but the students' parents, sisters, brothers, uncles, grandparents. Because I've been with him when we'll be someplace and someone will walk up to him and say, "Hey, Sensei, oh my gosh, I haven't seen you in so long." He'll say, "Paul, is that you? You were 6 years old last time I saw him. Now you look like you're 40, right?" I mean, I'm like,
Wow. Yeah.
what? I mean, he's that kind of guy. And so I asked him one day, I said, Sensei, I said, if there's one thing in life to make your life better and to live a great life, what would that be? He didn't even think about it. Within a split second, he said, give more.
Mm.
I said, what? He says, give more. I said, give more what? I mean, just me being the flaky,
For
normal human
coffee.
being,
Right, right, right.
right? And he says, give more of everything. And I said, and I could tell he had the look of, what are you, stupid? Right? And so I ended it and I said, okay, give more of everything. And this happened years ago, and I've never forgot it. And I've realized you want more respect, give more respect. You want more love, give more love. You want more of anything, give more, right? Give more. You want
Mhm.
more attention, give more attention. You want more freedom in your life, give more freedom to other people in your life. And to what you were just talking about, at least in my experience, it has been so true. You cannot outgive. That's beautiful. I've never heard that either.
Yeah.
And yeah, wow, what a lesson. What a
Yeah.
lesson. And on you
Yeah.
went.
Yes. And I love that. Give more. I mean, my gosh, that's a
Can you
motto
imagine?
for your life, right? Just give more.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and I'll also tell you, just on a personal front, I found myself, we have a place in California. We spend a lot of time down here because my grandkids are here. I've got three grandsons, and we're always taking food and we're always doing stuff because they have three kids, and like you said, sometimes it's hard to take a shower, and so we're helping them. And I found myself in a place where I was going, man, they didn't even say thank you.
Mm.
Or man, they didn't do anything. They've not offered help to us. And my wife turned to me and said, "What's the matter with you?" I said, "What do you mean?" She says, "Are you expecting something in return?" Right?
Right.
And then came my sensei's lesson back to me, right?
Mhm.
Give more without any expectation of anything coming back. Because if you have expectations, you're not truly giving. You're not. And I'll tell you something. My little experience with my kids. Um, it's just been amazing ever since I've just let all that crap out of my head of having expectations of other people and just saying, you know what, I'm just going to do it. And and it really is it's freeing,
Mm,
right?
yes.
Because I never walk away anymore going, wow, geez, those guys are they lack appreciation. No, right? They don't lack
Right.
appreciation. You're the one with the problem, Suzuki, you know? And so and so yeah, I'm sorry, this is your story, but I'm just throwing
Yeah,
stuff in
no, but
because I
what you're
just have
saying
boom,
is so,
boom. Yeah,
but what you're saying is so true because the minute you expect anything in return for the kindness, love is kind. The
yeah,
First Corinthians
yep.
says love is kind. The minute you expect anything in return for your kindness, it might still be kind. It's still kind to bring food. It's still kind to help out with the kids. It might be kind, but there's no love in that. The love leaves. The minute you have any expectations, the love is gone. And
And that's where unconditional love comes from,
yeah, well, and how
is
much
love
more
without
fun is it,
expectation.
John? How much more fun is it to go, I can't wait to bring this to my daughter. She's going to be so happy.
Right.
She's going to love
Right.
this. Then go on, I'm going to bring it to her. She better appreciate this, right?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. What's the matter with you? Just a day before yesterday, right? I mean, we had a great time. Yesterday was Easter, but on Saturday, my daughter had put together this big Easter egg hunt, right? And she just did it for the love of the kids, right? The kids and all their friends and their friends' families and stuff like that. No expectation of anything coming back. Just, she prepared it. We got out there. We were taking, 4 6-foot tables out there. We made cupcakes and all these different things. And she put together 500 Easter eggs. And, it was just out and we had such a great time. And you know what? When it was all over in this park, we had to carry all the tables back to the truck. Nobody helped us. Nobody helped us. Everybody was like, "Hey, thank you. That was a great party. See ya." And not once did it come to my mind until just now, that I thought, "Geez, why are these people sticking around and helping us?" Right? We just had a great time, and it was wonderful. We had nobody had any expectations of anybody, and my daughter had a wonderful time, and it was she just gave her love. and and the love that came back was crazy, you
Yeah,
know?
right, right. Well, and something to kind of tag on to that is you didn't expect anybody to help. Had somebody helped, your level of love for them and appreciation would have been through the roof, right?
Yeah,
Because
yeah,
you didn't expect it.
yeah, that's
If
right.
instead you expected it and somebody came and helped, you'd be like, well, yeah, they better be helping, right?
And you just hit on something. I always tell people, whether it be at work or when they're trying to do certain things, do something to be memorable, do something to be remembered, right? And it's all about doing something outside of expectation.
Yeah.
And in that case, like you just said, if somebody had just said, "Hey, John, let me grab that for you and pick it," I remember that? I absolutely would remember that, right?
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
yeah, and we're talking in La La Land. Well, there's a movie called La La Land. That's not what we're talking about. But we're talking about this world where you and I are having such a great time talking about it. And we're talking about the wonderful experiences that we have in this world that you and I are living in right now. How do we okay, I want to ask you this question at the end. How do we do more of that? How do we get more of it out there, right? So that
Mhm.
other people can experience it, other people can have these conversations. But we'll talk about that at the end because I want to make sure you have time to finish this part of your story.
Yeah, so life was great though. And you've experienced the same thing and lots of people have experienced the same thing. And when you want life to be great, it can be great. And you get to decide. I think that's a big thing. Even if you're going through a hard time, you still get to decide how you handle the hard time, what your reaction is to what somebody says, how you deal with a traffic jam, whatever. But so life was great. And then, and we worked together, my husband and I, and we coached together. And uh, he was my assistant coach. He didn't play sports in school. I played sports in school, and I'm coaching. And he knew if he wanted to see me more, he had to actually learn about the sport and be my assistant. Because it's a lot of time when you're coaching a varsity sport, high school varsity sport. So uh, he did that for me. Like, what a huge thing to do for your wife. Like, man, talk about not being able to outgive, right? So anyway, things were great. And we finally got to this point where we were going to be empty nesters. And I'll tell you what, John, I was looking forward to being an empty nester. My last one moved away, and I thought for good. Now they're all gone. And I love my kids, love them. They can come back anytime. They can spend as much time with me as they want to. I love them all dearly. But there was something about marrying young. We had 2 years together before kids came. And then, so not that much time together. We weren't together for very long before we got married. So now it was going to be our time together. And
Now it's time to catch up. Yeah.
right. We hadn't put stuff out. We took trips. We did the stuff. We did what we wanted to do, but we were going to do more of it. And I don't know what empty nesters do exactly, but I was so excited. I mean, I don't know if you run around the house naked, or I don't even know what it means to be an empty nester, but for whatever reason, whatever that was going to look like, I was just excited that we were going to be empty nesters. And we were. So we finally became empty nesters. And then 2 weeks later, I found out I had breast cancer. And
Oh,
that rocked the nest a bit. And then right after that, my husband started having stomach issues. And he went to the doctor. And the doctor said, "Oh, it's just nerves because of Kim, whatever, just take some Tums, Rolaids, whatever." Well, 2 months into my stuff, and 2 months after going to the doctor, he went again. And the doctor said, "Listen, I'm sure it's just nerves," but he did make an appointment with a gastro guy. And so, which was 2 months away. I mean, he had to wait so long. The holidays were in there, whatever, I don't know, but had to wait 2 months to go to this gastro guy. Well, meanwhile, I was having my third surgery, which was a complete hysterectomy because of the kind of breast cancer I had and hormones, whatever. And so, while having that, I was having a colonoscopy. And anyone who's been through that knows you do not leave your home the day before when you're doing the complete clean out. You stay close to your bathroom. And that was the day,
very close, like
very
in
close.
it.
Exactly. And that was the day of his appointment with this specialist. And so I
Oh,
couldn't go. And I'm the mouth, right? Like, I'm going to be, "You got to run a test. You got to help this guy. You don't understand, whatever." My husband was just always so kind and nice and okay, whatever. And he saw a PA, and the PA said exactly what his family doc had said: "Take some Rolaids." So he comes home from the doctor. I'm livid because I'm like, we waited this long for an appointment, and this is what they said. But
take some Rolaids.
right, yeah. But the next day I was having surgery, so I kind of had to focus on that a little bit. And then when I had the surgery, they found bladder cancer also, so my recovery was a little bit longer than it would have been for the hysterectomy. And so a week later, exactly, I'm still watching Grey's Anatomy reruns, and pants with elastic waists, and trying to be as comfortable as possible. And my husband that morning, he was just in so much pain, and I said, "Well, that's it. Go to the ER. At least they'll run a test. They'll do something for you. They're not going to just send you home and tell you to take Rolaids. Make them do something." But I was in no condition to go with him, so he drove
Wow.
himself to the ER. And he was a rule follower. So when it said no cell phones on the walls, he put his cell phone, he turned it off, put it in his pocket, didn't give it another thought as I'm calling it and calling it, "What's going on? What's going on?" and getting his voicemail. And finally, he called me and he said, "Well, I guess they're going to keep me overnight." And I'm like, "Keep you overnight? They don't keep anybody overnight. This was a Friday, and they're going to keep you overnight they're keeping you overnight." So I quick ran and put on like real people clothes and hopped in my car and in my Vicodin induced state drove like a mad woman to the hospital. And I was almost there. I was almost at the hospital. Didn't do any harm to anyone, praise the Lord. But I was almost there and my phone rang again. And he said, I guess there's a spot on my liver. I'm like,
Mm.
spot on your liver. I just started bawling. I just started weeping and crying out to God. And I got to the hospital. I don't really remember parking. I do remember running in, holding all parts of my body because everything by then had been
Oh
taken
my
over,
gosh.
whatever. And so in pain, they told me where he was. He was behind a curtain. I'm sobbing. And I whipped back the curtain and he's sitting on the edge of the bed like nothing's going on. And he looked at me and he said, listen, I am not going to invite you out anymore if this is the way you're going to behave. And I said, listen, buddy, you are not allowed to be funny right now. And so, any kind of a diagnosis takes a little bit. I, dug my feet in. I made him do tests more than once because I didn't like the numbers that were coming back. I fought with the doctors. I did anything I could for them to be able to say, no, what we think it is, it's not. But what they thought it was not. They thought he had colon cancer, and it turned out he had pancreatic cancer.
Oh no.
Yeah, which is not,
Yeah,
if you're gonna pick one, that's not the one to pick.
that's not the one you want to pick
No,
for sure.
no. Yeah. And they told us he'd probably live a year. He was 51 years old. I was 47. He's 51, 6'3", 175 pounds, same weight the day I married him, right? And very active. His job was very active. He was very active. He loved lifting weights, loved working out, loved playing tennis and doing all the things. And he was a great healthy eater, although he would say that donuts were the fifth food group. So I'm not sure how healthy
I
that made.
agree. I agree. So
Exactly.
it must be
Yeah,
true.
it must be true. But he's this young, healthy guy. So they're like, you can beat the odds, if somebody lives this long, as far as you progress, but you could certainly live longer. You're gonna outdo it. So so we decided we were just gonna hang out. So we did. So we just stayed home together. I mean, he was miserable anyway. We had great hospice and it kept his pain away. And that was our prayer, Lord, heal him like you did the blind, the deaf, the lame, or the greatest healing that sometimes we forget of heaven. But please don't let him suffer. That was our prayer. Please don't let him suffer. And he didn't. Hospice was great, and he didn't suffer. His pain was gone, and we had so much fun just playing gin rummy and watching old movies and whatever we did together. We just had a great time together. And then 6 weeks in, he woke up in the morning and was in pain, and it was real pain. It was intense, horrible, awful pain. And I called the hospice
Oh.
nurse. She came right over. She gave him some more morphine, and then we're in my bedroom. I'm holding him from behind. He was sitting on the edge of the bed because I heard to lay down. And I was holding him from behind. I didn't want him to fall off the bed. And she was on the phone, like right in front of me in our bedroom. And she's calling for a commode and a hospital bed. I mean, we had nothing. We're sleeping in the same bed together. We're just living life. We're just hanging out
Wow.
together, living life. And but I could feel his agony. And so I looked at her, I said, do I call my kids? She said, oh no, 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 no. You've got lots of time, you're fine. But man, I could just feel how miserable he was. And I said, are you sure I shouldn't call my kids? And she said, no, I promise you, I see this all the time. You've got weeks, if not months, you've got a long time. And but because I could feel his agony, I whispered in his ear and I said, baby, just go. And that was the last breath he ever took. That was it. He was gone.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Yeah.
After, and
So,
this is around the same time the nurse said, I've seen this. He's got weeks or
oh,
months.
I mean, it's within minutes. Right. Yeah.
And he
Absolutely. Yeah.
took his last breath
Yeah. Yeah.
and he gave him permission to go.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
beautiful.
Yeah. I
I'm
mean,
so sorry.
thank you. Thank you. It sucks for me, but how great for him. He
Yeah.
didn't want to be
Yeah.
in pain. I didn't want him to
Yeah.
have to be in pain. So
Yeah.
often people linger, and there can be really
Yeah.
good reasons why people hang on, whatever. But I didn't see a reason uh, to not say it. Like I loved him deeply enough to be able to say it, I guess, is
Yeah.
what it is. That it wasn't about me at all in that moment. It was just completely and totally about him. And he was honestly, a great guy. Like he was the guy that at 5 o'clock every morning was on his face before God, praying, reading Bible, reading a devotional. He's the guy that would literally give you the shirt off his back. He did everything for anyone he could all the time. Everyone wanted to be his friend just because he was such a great guy. He was honest and trustworthy, and he was a great guy. And from what I understand, heaven's an amazing place. And so,
Yeah. Yeah.
so to
Yeah.
be, so at
Yeah.
51 years old, to go to heaven, never have the flu again, never be sick again, never pay
Yeah.
another bill. That's not so bad.
But I don't know about
Good
that
for
never pay
him.
another bill part.
Who knows?
How do you know that? How do you know that, Kim?
You're right. I don't know, but maybe we do it more happily. Maybe we're really happy when we're paying the bills. I don't know, but all about happy money, right? With
Yeah,
Ken Hahn.
that's right.
But anyway, yeah, it's not so bad. It's like it's the reward, but yet it's so devastating
Yeah.
to us when somebody goes. But it's what I had a great marriage. I had a better marriage. I had way better marriage than most people have their entire life. A way better relationship than most people have their entire life.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so we were married for almost 29 years, and it was it was great.
That's
And
wonderful. And he obviously left an amazing legacy behind, which is all we can hope to do ourselves. And here we are talking to him on a podcast. I can only hope and pray that somebody talks to me on a podcast someday, or talks about me on a podcast
yeah.
someday. And that's amazing. So what I want to continue this conversation because that was just from what I know about you, and I've learned a lot in this conversation. That was just kind of the beginning of your journey, and in the next part of your life, right?
Mhm.
Um, how did you what did you do? I mean, it's one thing when you lose somebody and you have time with them. And like when I lost my mom, I knew she had Alzheimer's. I had a 5-year fuse to spend time with her. But in your case, your husband was gone in a breath. And without going into too much detail, what happened next? And what did you do?
Well,
And you got this huge void now. You got this
oh,
gigantic empty hole in your heart.
yes,
And you have your kids, you have lots of friends, you have all that, but you don't have him.
right.
So then what?
Yeah, well, and I'd never been a single adult. I never planned on being a single adult. I planned on in our 90s somewhere. We'd be sitting on a
Yeah,
porch sipping lemonade, right, on rockers or something. And so everything was a mystery to me at that point. Like, how am I going to live? What am I going to choose to do? What are my choices? Do I have choices? What's going to happen? And the one thing I knew, and of course I still had to get through my cancer stuff. I wasn't done yet.
right,
And so that, I would have rather not had that going on also at the same time, but in a way, maybe it was a distraction. I don't know. But the one thing that I knew is that I've seen other people lose people, right? Like we've seen people lose people. And I wanted to honor my husband the way he honored me when he was alive. So I wanted to not, you see some people just like underneath grief and have a hard time coming on top of it again. And to me, people can grieve however they want. We should allow people to grieve however they want, for however long they want. I'm not judging anybody's grief, but I've seen people just stay almost stuck in grief. And I
Yeah.
thought, if I do that, like I'm gonna wallow as long as I want to wallow, right? Like I'm gonna cry anytime I want to cry. I'm gonna let it out. But I wanted to know that I was living a life that would be honoring to him. And so in thinking about that, what that would look like and what that would even mean, I thought, well, there was a whole WWJD thing, right? Not that long ago. What would Jesus do? I think it's still
Hmm.
around. Probably people have coffee mugs. I don't know, but it was a big thing when it was out, WWJD. But Jesus is different to everybody. To some he's a heretic, to some he's a prophet, to some he's love and light and peace and all things good, and he's God. So what would Jesus do can be answered a bunch of different ways.
Oh, yeah, totally.
Yeah. And the other flip side of that, though, is God is love. So if you said, what would love do? Then that should be pretty universal. Love is universal. And so if you answer a question that way, then you should be doing the right thing. So I thought, well, then that's what I have to do. But what is love? What is it? How do I figure out what that looks like, what that even means? And so I decided I was going to find out. I decided I would dedicate a year to searching for, looking for the true meaning of love. And John, I have a hard time committing to an entree when I go out for dinner. So to commit a year to something was a big stretch for me. Like that was a
Yeah.
lot, but I was committed and decided I was going to do it. And most of the year that I did that, I spent in Haiti. And so that added a whole different element to things.
So, so through that, and this is kind of a little bit of a preview because I want to have you back, um, uh, and spend another hour talking about that journey of yours. But I don't know if there's a spoiler alert or anything like that, that's going to be needed for the next episode. What is love? What did you find?
Yeah, well, what I found is that love is not what you think it is. There's a lot of myths surrounding love. But what love is walking and talking and living and breathing and giving. Love is who you are. Love is all encompassing. It is the skin that you wear, the heart in your chest, the stomach in your gut, the brain in your head. It is all encompassing. Love is who you are. And how you walk it, how you talk it, how you live it, how you give it is entirely up to you.
You know, as you know, I've been before I retired a couple of years ago, I spent 38 years in tech and high tech. I mean, started my career in '84 with IBM, before fax machines. So that'll give you an estimate of how old I am. But the world has, through technology, the world has gotten smarter and smarter and faster and faster. And now we're entering the age of artificial intelligence. So I coined a phrase, and the phrase says this: we've gotten so smart, we've forgotten our heart. And, I think that's what you and I are here for, Kim. I think one of the reasons why we're here is to help people rediscover their heart in a way that's bigger than their smarts.
Mhm.
And I also believe that we're living in a time where we're going to see a renaissance of the heart, and AI is going to force it, because this is going to sound really corny, but I do believe that AI is going to enable our hearts to shine, because that's a one thing that AI can't replace, is that human connection and the heart part of who we are, which is everything. So you went on an incredible journey, a year in Haiti, and did you become a different person?
Oh, 100%. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I loved before this journey, of course. I loved people, loved loved the way I loved, the way I knew how to love and whatever. But yeah, finding out the things I did absolutely changed my life and rocked my world. And uh it was it's so much simpler than we think. And it is the most
That's
absolute freeing thing. You talked about freedom earlier. It is the most freeing thing you can do. You want to live in total freedom? Just love people. Just love everybody.
and you want to live in total fear? Don't.
Right. Right.
Kim, this has been amazing. You said a few things that I actually wrote down. And so as I looked away, I apologize for looking away, but I want to share three things I wrote down. I mean, we've recorded this, so I'm gonna I'm gonna be able to look back on this. But first thing you said was expectations get us into trouble. And that was a story about your husband and and you and your romantic evening and him not seeing any of it. Uh, and so prompt it. If you want people to see things, tell them that it's there, right? Expectations get us into trouble. There's something you could do about it. If it doesn't, the second thing is it doesn't take two. It only takes one to affect change. It doesn't take two people. It only takes one. That's amazing. And the last thing you said is that no matter where you are in your life, no matter what you're doing, you get to decide. Period. Right? And
Mhm.
as I've said many, many times, our lives are the products of the decisions and the choices that we've made. And to people who disagree with that, I will say, okay, do you agree with this statement that the product of your life and your future is going to depend on the choices and decisions you make from now on? And everybody says yes, of course. Uh, and 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 a lot of people take that as a burden. Make the right decisions. Make the right decisions. Oh my gosh, I got to make the right choices. You just turned that on its head, and you just made it an opportunity when you said, Kim, you get to decide. How cool is that? Right? So with that, Kim, I'm gonna end this now with a promise that I'm going to invite you back, and I'm not going to expect a promise back from you that you will come back. I'm just going to ask you back until you come back. Um, and so, but with that, Kim, thank you. Thank you for sharing such a big, big part of your life and your journey. Um, can't wait to hear what has happened from then to now, and learning more about that journey. But folks, love more, forgive more. You know, life can be so much simpler um, if we just take out the expectations. I think that's one of the biggest things I've taken from this conversation. So, with that, Kim, I love you. God bless you. Thank you for joining me. All of you out there, share this. Please share this. And you know, if you think about it, you know, maybe subscribe to this podcast because we're going to talk more and more about stuff like this. I love you. God bless you. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you next time. Bye.